Date with a Debut is recorded and produced on Awabakal Country, and I pay my respects to all elders past and present and extend that to any First Nations people tuning in. Always was, always will be, Aboriginal land. On with the show.
I think there has been this real push for sort of like escapist queer stories, especially in YA. When you're the age of these characters, you are living in these like absolute nothing zones and then like really high and really low, and not a whole lot in between.
Welcome to Date with a Debut, a podcast about debut authors, their incredible books, and their journey to publication. If you're looking for a new author to discover or writing inspiration for your own story and you don't know where to start, this is the place to be. I'm Nick Wasiliev, host of the show, and I'm delighted to welcome another debut author in today's episode. If you enjoyed the show, jump online and give us a thumbs up, a 5-star review. It really helps the show out. If you also want to hear episodes when they drop, be sure to subscribe to Words and Nerds, or you can subscribe to Date with a Debut on Podbean to hear the latest episodes as they drop. Want to support the show more? You can also subscribe to my Patreon in the description to get early access to episodes, book reviews, recommendations, and a whole lot more. Wherever you are listening, thank you for listening to us and supporting the Australian book industry. You can also find any books mentioned in today's podcast down in the description. Today, I'm joined by Curtis Campbell, a writer, comedian, and theatre artist based out of Toronto, Canada, a popular playwright in the Canadian theatre scene and winner of the inaugural Comedy Bar and Second City Award for Best Comedy at the 2022 Toronto Fringe. We're here today to talk about his debut YA, The House of Rural Realness, published by University of Queensland Press, which you can get a copy of down in the description. We will discuss mild spoilers, so I recommend you grab a copy now, or at least very soon. I started off by asking about how his background as a playwright was used as the basis for the story, and how comedy can be used to touch on difficult subject matter, and a surprising choice that was made when it came to the book being marketed to Australian audiences. Curtis, welcome to Date with a Debut.
Hi. Hello.
I want to kind of start off by addressing the elephant in the room. I always like talking about the journey to publication somewhat, but with you, I kind of have a bit of a unique opportunity. We often find it interesting talking with other authors, in Australia or, elsewhere, comparing the Australian English publications of a book with, the elements that are pushed and slated when compared for, say, a release in the Americas. And if you were to search your beautiful, wonderful book on Goodreads, you would not find it under the name The House of Rural Realness, or what I like to call Thor. Yeah. But it's in fact called Dragging Mason County.
Yeah.
I actually want to hear your perspective. From your perspective, looking at us, was there anything that kind of surprised you around changing the book title or changing things for an Aussie audience?
I think the only things that were changed in the book itself were, I think, like a few words here and there that there's like sort of just the Canadian equivalent of an Australian thing, or like there's an Australian equivalent, and it would make more sense for it to be that word, which is like delightful. I think it's so fun. There's going to be a French translation in France, and I'm so deeply curious. I've decided I'm going to use it as to brush up on my French, which as a Canadian I am supposed to, ideally speak both languages. But I was like, wow, how did you? I'm so curious how they're going to take so much wordplay and like sort of like drag specific stuff and turn it French. But other than that, there's no real big changes being made. Like even the cover has been kept the same. I think what kind of surprised me and like is that the House of Rural Realness is a bit of a tongue twister, which like kind of by design, I was just like, that's a fun kind of insane thing to say over and over again. And the throwing that in with the I think in a Canadian accent, it's fairly easy to roll off the tongue, but with the Australian accent, the sort of like longer R's really are a factor there. And I was like, hey, if you guys want to say that over and over again, you go too. That's none of my business. But I was a little shocked, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
House of Rural Realness. I just feel
Yeah.
like my tongue just
Yeah,
seizes up.
yeah.
But
Yeah, it's very Jenna Maroney, rural juror.
I also think it's such a rite of passage to get your book translated into French. Like, flex. That would be so cool to
I
see,
know.
like your words in another language.
Yeah, I know. I'm really excited.
There's often a quote. I kind of feel like I need to ask this question before we actually dive headlong into Peter and Alan's life in this book in Mason County. And there's often a quote, I think it's usually attributed to American comedian Carol Burnett, that comedy is tragedy plus time.
Yeah.
Which I think, I love that Attic Press, and then by extension UQ Press, University of Queensland Press over here, they've really gone and pushed a lot of diverse range of books. And this story, look, full disclosure, I like to keep it as spoiler-free as I can. This book has a lot of heavy stuff in it, heavy topics, but you perform a brilliant balancing act with this book.
Oh, thanks.
There is a lot of humor in it. There is a lot of moments where I burst out laughing.
I mean, it's a comedy.
Like, yes, that's right. It's a comedy at its core.
Yeah.
And, you know, it brings concepts about gay culture, drag, and everything also really down to earth. And I imagine it took a lot of you digging into your own experiences on this. What was kind of the assembly of this book like? First of all, both as you were a playwright and you're now writing for the page, but also in terms of your own journey.
Yeah, I mean, I'm both now, which is a bit of a I
own it, flex.
Yeah, like this time last year, I was doing like mornings with the forthcoming Mason book, and in the evening, I would write a play that I was in residency for, and they were both dark comedies, so the switching of that was not overly difficult, but the like adult sensibility of the play really started to bleed into the book, and I had to be like, I don't know if the teens really need that. I don't know if they're gonna really get that reference. But yeah, I mean, the sort of dark comedy of it. Yeah, I get that a lot, which I is kind of delightful. But it's this like this sort of oh wow, it's like it's very dark, but also very funny. But it's very funny, but it's also very dark. And I'm like, yeah, that's sort of the stuff that I really have always gravitated towards. I think the sort of like binary that we've made of like comedy and drama is fine, but I think it's ultimately none of your business as a writer to like pin that down onto either side. Like other people are going to do that later. That's not really your concern. So for this, it was like, it started pretty, like the tone of the thing wasn't overly different in the first draft. I think the book is very much like the brainchild of myself and Kari Matherin, the editor at Attic Press, who pretty quickly cottoned on to like, I am always going to like try and subvert what could be an actual sincere moment with like a really dark joke, or like sort of a prolonged bit. And he had to come in and be like, so funny, babe, so funny, you're so good, like stars for you really did your homework, everyone is so impressed. Cool. So what if we actually sort of like didn't keep sort of like flipping off the reader for like wanting to be invested? And I was like, I guess we could do that. Kind of a crazy idea. No, he really pushed me to dig into the more real aspects of the story, which it's a bunch of rural queers. I think there has been this real push for sort of like escapist queer stories, especially in YA spaces. And I think I can understand that from from like a consumer perspective, I suppose I do understand that.
Escapism is probably quite popular right now because of the state of the world.
Yeah.
So and it's kind of like the element of expressionism that kind of comes out in queer YA is probably viewed as something that, hey, this is a space that can be safe where people can express themselves. So escapism just fits naturally into that.
Totally, and so fun. But I think for me, there was a little bit of like, I think you can be escapist and unescapist at the same time. Like, I think this is such a, this is the weird double thing that this book is always doing, and that my Mason stuff tends to do, is like, it is very outlandish, and like ridiculous and heightened. Like, it's very stylized. The sort of like, well, this isn't very realistic. Like, critique has always sort of baffled me, because I'm like, I mean, no, like, no, it isn't. I don't think I ever said it was. It's, this like very sort of cartoonish silliness that kind of can turn quite quickly into like a very real thing, and then turn back into something quite escapist and silly. And I'm like, I think when you're the age of these characters, you are living in these like, if you were like a depressed teenager like I am, you were living in these like absolute nothing zones, and then like really high and really low, and not a whole lot in between. And that's the comedy and the realist stuff kind of lives in there. So Kari really pushed me to start finding that, and then it was and it continues to be a challenge of like, I know how to go really big and stylish and crazy and kooky, but the challenge for me is always to like, bring it back to the human, bring it back to the like sort of like gross reality of the thing. But that contrast is super fun, and I think the way that you can sort of like do a complete record scratch right turn tonally is like, it's never not satisfying as a writer. It's just so fun to be like, and stupid thing now.
Without further ado, let's not beat around the bush. Let's talk about this book, The House of Rural Realness, or also known as Dragging Madison County if you are in North America. This is the part of the podcast where I put you in an elevator or a lift, and I ask you, tell me, what is your 1 minute pitch for this book?
Oh yeah, I love that. A cynical small town gay teen through some bad choices that he has made, takes it upon himself to produce his town's first drag show, made up entirely of drag teenagers, drag teens, as I call them. And in doing so, ignite a bit of a culture war in their town. And it is a dark comedy for precocious teens.
The sort of book that you probably would have really vibed with growing up, which is always the truth. Read something that you wish you had.
Yeah, really. And I think that like there's this, I get kind of like offended for teenagers sometimes when people like are like, oh, dark comedy but for teenagers. I'm like, yeah, I don't know, like I didn't actually read a lot of YA when I was a teenager, because I was like, I don't really feel like this has anything to do with my sensibility. Like I was a Kurt Vonnegut obsessive, which, many precocious teenagers are. But I was like, that sort of, I think as a queer teen, you have to have such a sense of humor about yourself. Otherwise, especially if you grow up in the middle of nowhere, you have to have a real sense of humor about yourself. Otherwise, you're sort of this earnestness, depression all the time.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted stuff that had like a sense of humor, and I think stuff that dealt with serious issues, quote unquote, was so like, it'd be like these dark covers with like, you know, teenagers with like smudged faces and like tears in their eyes and stuff. Yeah. And I was like, well, that's not really it for me either. So yeah, I really wanted to find a little middle ground there. And I hope, you know, I hope that there is an audience of young people who are like, not, you know, not really here for the sunshine and rainbows, but not really here for like the, you know, the sort of Sturm und Drang of it all. So yeah,
they're here for the palette of colors that is life. It's life full of ups and downs. There is a balance between, you know, heavy themes and obviously that clear YA audience. You talk about this. This book has topics of gay identity and representation. It talks about bigotry. It talks about bullying, the effect of the online space on young minds, self-expression. But the first thing I kind of want to ask you about is that it's all framed within this town, within Mason County. Like, small country town, there are farmers, there's random skinheads who come out and be general menaces.
Yeah.
Tell me about this place. Tell me about Mason County, because it is the real setting for all of our characters.
Yeah, I've been writing Mason County for maybe like 10 years now in various ways. Several of my plays have been set there, in, you know, different genres. There was like a sort of dark fantasy sci-fi thing that I set there. There's some short fiction that I've written that is set there also, like sort of cross genre.
It's like a Curtis verse. It's like a Mason County Curtis verse.
Yeah, no, there is a sort of expanding mythology. There's a second Mason novel coming out next year that some of these characters are gonna, not these main characters, but there's some sort of secondary characters that are gonna play into it and build out the world a bit more. So yeah, there is this sort of expanding world, and I always say the geography of Mason County is a pretty direct rip from my own home county, which has always been kind of a fun challenge for me to like reimagine it and like sort of it's like a
distorted
sort of and like put my own, you know, my own imagination on it, and it's sort of it's a bit of a cheat sheet for me of like, okay, I need to picture it. Like, if I'm going to do a whole world, I kind of don't want to have to like reimagine, like create it out of nothing. So I'm just like, okay, well, that's where the beach is. And that's where the, you know, like that's where the this is. That's where the that is. Okay, great. We'll just do that.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, it's such an interesting place. And I love the characters now within it. I feel like the most obvious place to start is Peter, our narrator, who I will say, like, some people have described him as kind of quite unlikable. Some key points of the story, and yeah, he definitely is. But it took me a little while, until I was about probably halfway through the book, where I kind of realized, oh, this is what's going on here.
Yeah,
you know, I love that he very early describes himself as dragnostic, which is just the best word ever. Yeah. He's never really had a stab at gay romance. He's, I think, someone who is very filled with an anxiety and struggles with kind of how he expresses himself and that self-identity, which leads to him putting up barriers and being the sassiest individual ever. And my God, his mouth is brutal. Oh, Jesus, there are some brutal.
Oh yeah, he's vicious.
He can throw it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I found it interesting as well. People kind of almost viewed him. There was this whole self-hating gay element which came out of the book, and he expresses himself very differently to other characters who we'll get to in a bit. Obviously, he doesn't express it like that, but I found this particular character so interesting because obviously there is that stereotype. There's the stereotype of loud and proud queer representation that you see in so many books and so many views, but obviously that's not the full story. The queer culture comes out in many, many different forms, and I found Peter so interesting, especially when compared with Alan, obviously, who we'll get to in a minute. But tell me about Peter, because he is the ground zero of this balancing act that you're pulling off here.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've always found the like, well, he's not very likable thing. I'm always like, yeah, no, he's not. he's kind of a little shit. But I'm like, well, why do we? I've never understood why we need to like characters to invest in them. I think it's actually kind of a very sort of narcissistic thing. This idea that you're being like put into the shoes of a person, so you must like, I'm a good person and everyone likes me, so it might, I've always found that very short-sighted. But also, like, I don't know, man. Do you know, like, I think about myself as a teenager and I'm like, I don't want to hang out with him. And it's kind of frustrating to me because everyone, this sort of like, well, this idea that like we must have likable characters, especially when we're writing, I'm like, well, I'm writing a fat teenage boy growing up gay in the middle of nowhere. And honey, I've been those things, and I was not sunshine and rainbows. And I find that complaint a little like assimilationist, a little like, well, don't scare off the straights. Like, you don't want them to think that we're a bunch of bitches. And I'm like, but I was a bitch. I was, and it's we're in this moment where it's like everyone deserves stories and everyone deserves to be represented in media. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Well, here's how I was.
People don't want it to be warts and all. They want it to be brushstroke and curated and perfect.
And that's understandable, but it's like he is obviously like a sort of fantastical version of kind of who I wish I was at that age of like, he is absolutely scathing, and people used to tell me, like, when they got to know me like later, or when I kind of like calmed down a little bit towards my like entering my 20s, people would be like, I was like really scared of you. Literally like a month ago, someone who I went to high school with, who is also now a writer, Alexandra May Jones, another Annick author, I was like, we should hang out. And she was like, I was like, why don't we hang out? And she was like, because you've always intimidated me. You're kind of you were kind of a scary person. And I was like, well, that's, can't fault you for that one. That is true. And I'm like, this kid who is sort of like both like over the world and like terrified of the world, and so overlooked even by, I think there's this the kind of fun thing for me is like, by all accounts, the narrator of this should be Alan.
Yes.
And it's like, no, like, sure, but that's a different book. I think it's a more palatable book, but like, I think the more interesting book for me was like, no, but what about his like pithy best friend who like clearly hates himself? Like, what about that guy? So yeah, I find that sort of eternally irksome, but also it's kind of a real joy to like, sort of rub against that a little bit.
I will say to any listener who has either read the book or wants to read the book and can find Peter, brutal, stick with it. Honestly, stick with it, because his journey is really, really amazing. And I also, now it's interesting you mentioned this, because like Alan, where Alan came from, because Alan almost feels like a polar opposite. He is someone who is much more confident in expressing his own identity, has a queer name, agriculture, loud and proud. I love the quote when they're kind of driving to meet, I think it's Cora, and he goes, "Representation is everything, Peter. Like that's what's matter. You got to be out there and you got to be representative." And And when they talk about with this putting on this drag show that is kind of the crux of the story, that they have a point to prove with putting together this show, and he comes across as loud and accepting and welcoming of everyone. But then there's also moments of being intensely self-centered. As well.
Again, a teenager.
I'm still stunned about the scene where like he forces Peter into an interview with Bailey, and I'm like, As much as I understand, as much as Peter certainly presents himself in a certain way, like clearly he was obviously doing it to get this drag show going. Tell me about Alan, because obviously he's much more complex than this, loud and proud persona.
Oh yeah. I mean, look, teenagers are self-obsessed, and like that's fine. They're teenagers. They're literally, this is the time culturally and socially that we have like designated as this is the part where you figure yourself out. And like, I think for someone like Alan, who claims to have figured himself out so early, there's a bit of a, like, this is who I am, and if you're not into it, then you can see yourself out. And it's like, this idea of like, he would also, the idea that someone who is so incredible and like talented and like larger than life, and like he's a drag queen by the age of 17, by the age of 16, he's like a pretty well realized drag queen. Like you aren't those things, and also like so humble, not at that age.
Yes.
And I'm a little bit like, yeah, he's also a bit of a shit. And I love that. But like, I love characters like that. Like I love seeing characters like manipulate each other. I love seeing them, just do the things that people do in these heightened situations. But I think that's the thing, right? Like Alan is always talking about authenticity and living, living as his true self. And it's like, sure, babe, you're also like sort of a construct. And the second you let go of that a little bit, we start to see that like you actually are pretty like everybody else, insecure and have some hangups. And that I love it's, there's something about like, I think there's a line in the book about like, or maybe it's in the next one, about like seeing a clown smoking beside his car, like a birthday clown. And I'm like, at some point, Alan's cigarette is gonna like his like clown next to his car a few blocks down from the party, smoking his cigarette. Like that's what I really want to define with him. And also like, who doesn't want to be him?
Yeah.
I want to be him. He's pretty cool.
He's got that thing that a lot of kids when they're growing up have, which is that self-confidence and self-assurance, which is something that I think a lot of teenagers, you're kind of striving for that because you're in a period of your life where you're like, what the hell is going on here? How do I find out who I am and what this is? And the comparison game is just a natural part that kind of comes out of that. And I think it's really, really nice as well that you've got these other great characters around. Well, we won't go into all of them, obviously, because otherwise we'd truly be here all day. But I kind of really wanted to shout out, Tilly, who is very much, very key part in this as well.
The long-suffering woman in the group.
Oh, poor Tilly. I mean, God.
I was like, well, we have to have like one girl who is like constantly having to be more mature than the rest of the gays, because that's representation. That is truth.
Oh, that is truth. The hardest truth there is.
Yeah.
I also really like, I mean, yes, there is the romantic element to him, but Lorne the soft serve guy actually felt, particularly in the early stages of the book, like very quickly becomes a subject of affection
I could
for
write,
both Alan and Peter.
I could write him all
But he
day.
seems very grounded.
Lorne?
Well, I mean, at the
He's the
start.
most insane character in the book.
Yeah, I know, at the start.
I don't know what you're talking about. He's the most... No, like, from the word go, I was like, this boy is dead behind the eyes, absolute shark eyes. Like, there is truly nothing going on back there. I'm obsessed with him. I could write him all day. I think he's a true sociopath.
Yes, he is. But I was going to say spoilers, but at the start he seems all lovely and beautiful to begin with, of course, which is why Alan and Peter gravitate towards him. But keep an eye out for that boy, but we won't go into further detail.
I love him.
And I will finish, of course, with Bryson Dallas, who is, very much on the receiving end of this inciting incident in the book. Even with the teasing, that first of all is kind of not cool. But even with that, like, fuck, that was a brutal comment that set it off.
Can I tell you?
Tell me a bit about Bryson.
The original version of that, I think I was scared of. I was scared of scaring off my publisher, and so the initial version of that was actually quite tame, and it didn't really make any sense that like so much drama would unfurl from something pretty middle of the road. And Kari, my editor, was like, "Look. If this is gonna be bad, it has to be bad." And I honestly love what he said. I think it's iconic. I think it's so funny.
It's hilarious, but I mean, she's absolutely right. If you're gonna, it has to be something that makes even the reader go, "Whoa, stop, calm, whoa!" And it did successfully. You succeeded.
Yeah, it was not an okay thing, Bryson. I think what interested me about that character is that he is both like Peter's opposite, but also kind of his like soul sister. I think when they start to realize that they have more in common than they don't, there's a bit of, I really enjoyed finding that. I think that for me, he came from a place of like, there's a type of gay teen and like a young gay man that really operates in this like, I'm perfect, I'm incredible, and actually I'm going to be really mean, and it's going to be like, that's going to be my personality. And I was all three of these boys, Alan, Peter, and Bryson. And I just wanted this like sort of mean girl gay, who, by the end of it, you're like, oh yeah, no, you got some stuff going on too, don't you? Yeah. Well.
I think this actually ties quite nicely into the real thing that kind of came through in this book for me, which was it kind of comes up on that date that Lorne and Peter have, where they end up going and having a swim in the pool, which is I think it's the very first one where they talk about intent and delivery.
I hate him so much.
I know.
God, he really thinks he's like that therapist. Anyway,
I know.
Terrible. Terrible person.
But it kind of comes through in other elements of the book as well, because that conversation that happens a little bit later, where Peter is seen, he has this perception that everyone looks at him and thinks, oh, he thinks he's better than everyone else by everyone else, and yet the reality is couldn't be any further from the truth. He's someone who is a lack of self-confidence and usually responds with a sarcastic comment or something backhanded. And even down to the show itself, because the show kind of comes together like it's like bang, we're doing it as a point of in response to Chrissy, and the theme, also that theme in Peter kind of producing it, is the intent to clean up his image, or is it done because he wants to find a way to express himself or break through the issues he struggles with? And I got a feeling, with this intent and delivery element, which obviously is like key. It's just like great stuff for YA to dive into. You had a little more you wanted to dive into there, didn't you? Kind of with that element.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. It's I think this idea, I think, oh God, Natalie Wynn, ContraPoints has this really, she has this incredible video essay on, like cringe, on embarrassment, and yeah, sort of framed through like the trans female experience, or at least hers. And she talks about embarrassment being seeing the disparity between how you perceive yourself and how others might perceive you, and embarrassment living in the gap between, that we all kind of think doesn't exist. And then of course it like the little moments that you discover that does exist are like, wow, I'm throwing myself in front of a bus. I think that that is such a like shocking moment as a young person, to be like, oh, the narrative that I've constructed for myself is far more complicated than I've ever given it credit for. The narrative that I've constructed around myself is far more complicated than I've given it credit for. And he sort of just keeps discovering that, and like, no matter what he thinks his intent is in all this, and the fact that he thinks that nobody notices him and no one cares, like that is, so far from the truth. So I think it is, that is such a like coming of age thing that we all go through.
Absolutely. As a kind of a last question, it's a question I like to ask a lot of authors on the show. And, there is the obvious stereotype question of saying, what do you want readers to get out of this? And of course you say, well, go read the damn book. It comes down to the reader itself. You get
That's
what you want out of it.
Funny. Wow. People should say that.
What do you want readers to get out of it? I mean, I'm the writer. This is just my writer brain talking right now. I'm the writer. I have no control what you get out of it. You're the person who reads it. You're the person. So instead, I want to ask, what did writing this book teach you? Something that you didn't know before, and now you've spent time with this particular subject matter or topic, and you feel differently to it from the back of this book.
Yeah, that's really lovely. I think, honestly, I think being meant to sit with someone else's, this like imaginary mind that you've created, this sort of construction of a person, it really does force you to be empathetic, to quite a degree. I think that scathing, sarcastic, irony-fueled person that I am, it really does ask you to be empathetic. And I think especially towards, the culture that I grew up in, it does ask, I was sort of constantly asking myself to like, or rather my editor was constantly asking me to be a bit more empathetic. So I think I sort of operate with a bit more empathy than I did before, especially like, playwriting, at least the way that I do it is very, there's not quite so much interiority. In fact, if there is a lot of interiority, it's probably a pretty shitty play. That was quite the journey I went on with that, I think.
Absolutely. And that's a nice thing to learn. I'm glad that that's something you picked up.
I know. Other people have thoughts and feelings too. It's really gross.
I know.
Really
God.
Yeah.
You mentioned that there is another book coming.
Yeah.
Can I have any details, any knowledge, anything exciting?
What can I say? It takes place in Mason. Takes place during the school year this time. Which is fun. And it is about a group of teen environmentalists, led by a, would you believe it, sarcastic yet ultimately full of heart teen gay boy.
Love it. I love it. More, please. I will happily come back to Mason County, particularly on the subject if there's environmentalist subjects. So sounds amazing.
Yeah, I'm really excited. It's going to be a fun, dark, and fun time.
We'll finish off the show. We'll finish off the podcast with what I like to call a rapid fire question part of the date, where I basically fling a bunch of questions at you. I put you on the spot. You are on the spot. You must be terrified. You should be afraid.
I live in constant fear, so we're there already.
Oh, so you'll be right at home. This sounds great. Excellent. Well, I'm going to just fling these questions at you, and you give me the first answer that comes to your head.
Great.
First up, what's your favorite book that you've read in the last 12 months?
Doppelganger by Naomi Klein.
Oh, dang. I have not heard of that one. Why'd you like it?
Naomi Klein is a genius. It is a book about the sort of post-COVID, uber atomized, like insular culture that we live in, where essentially, everything has to exist in a binary of like good or bad, or woke or conservative, and she drills into all of that through a series of essays in it's completely revelatory. It's incredible. I highly recommend it.
Oh, I love it. And so many good books have come out of the whole COVID situation. I mean, it's terrible as the COVID situation was, full disclaimer. But it's just offered so many new perspectives on the world. And brought a lot of things that previously hadn't been discussed.
Yeah. Maggie Nelson did a really great On Freedom by Maggie Nelson is pretty phenomenal as well. She wrote that that was published like 2021, I think, when like the shit was still really hitting the fan. And she sort of looks at this like, okay, what does freedom mean when we've been confronted with what is like an actual need for public health and for public accountability and like actual collective action. And it's like a terrifying, shocking, beautiful read. So that also is great.
I love it. What is your favorite debut novel that you've ever read on the theme of Date with a Debut?
The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien.
Oh, it's so good. So good. That's a great pick. No one's ever gone with The Hobbit. It is, in fact, a debut.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. What is, obviously, of course, being a book that contains a hell of a lot of drag, what is one element of drag that you think should be celebrated more, and what is one element of drag you think gets too much of the limelight?
I've never seen a drag show. I don't know. I mean, I love Sasha Velour. I think she's truly like a true individual, which is funny because you read her book, The Big Reveal, and she's like, I am not an individual at all. This is actually, here's the context. I made everything. Here's the history of drag. Here is like the, she's a genius. I think that the way that she has merged drag and theater and cabaret is gorgeous and incredible, and she's not the only person that's done it. And I think that there's the like drag as theater aspect that I, as a theater artist and a, theater degree holder and sort of eternally obsessed with, that I think there's just so much more room for drag as, I always say, like, drag is a medium, art, like visual art is a million different things. Television is a million different things. Drag is a million different things. So the sort of like theatrical aspect of that, there's a incredible drag queen. She's my favorite drag queen, named Pearl Harbor, from Toronto. She creates one-woman plays, like fictional sort of narrative pieces, narrative-ish, one-woman plays as her drag persona, and they are just she sings, she has, it's all very conceptual, and I think that there is so much more room for that, because drag, many people approach drag as like, this is a character that I do. So that the thing that I think should be less focused on,
I think that's something not necessarily less focused on, because drag is a key part of drag is the element of self-expression. Something that is often talked about maybe a little bit too much in comparison to other elements of drag.
Oh boy, I don't really care about the illusion of it all, and I actually think that people have started to care less, in the sense that it's like, you're like a twink with a wig on and incredible makeup, like there's no padding or whatever, which, like, fine, but there's this sort of a thing of like, you're not giving a girl at all or whatever, and it's like, yeah, obviously not. Like, what this is not about womanhood. It's about, it's about gender dialed to a trillion. I would like less attention paid on that, and like the polish of drag. I think it's been said by many people smarter than I that the drag race industrial complex has normalized a certain expense to drag, but like, I love a bearded queen with like, an obvious bulge and like a smoker's cough. Like, let's
Love it.
we gotta find that again.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of really great music that you kind of allude to throughout the book. Curtis is at home one night. Curtis is in a mood, any sort of mood. What is a quintessential go-to song that you like to go to?
Oh God. Can I say something really pretentious? I'm less of a song person than I am an album person. Like, I'm like a full play the whole thing. So what have I been? I've been really obsessed with this Scottish musician named Hamish Hawke. So I've been listening to his albums pretty much on repeat lately. And I mean, if I'm like in a sad mood, I play "This Must Be the Place" by Talking Heads. That's the saddest song. It's so beautiful. That's my, like, I'm like swaying in my apartment and like, sort of like touching my face with the back of my hand and feeling the curtains and stuff. That's that song.
The solo dance. It's the solo dance song. The song where you're like, I need a song to dance to in the kitchen.
Yeah, it's like the sort of like end of the second act of the prestige TV show that is my, my day.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Fight or flight?
Just sort of getting into it, just like really chatting it out.
I love that. That's a perfect answer. I like it. Yeah. Do you have a drag name?
Atlantis Percocet.
That's a great drag name.
Yeah, she's a Toronto's Jagged Little Thrill. I do a doubles act with my drag sister Merlola Bordeaux. We're called Lola and Lonnie, she's much better at drag than I am, and we're basically just two. It's sort of like, what if you looked over at a dumpster and two drag queens like hauled themselves out of it and looked at you with terrifying intent. That's sort of what we do.
I love it. Now I need to come and see the show. You get into a lift and your ultimate celebrity friend is in there. Who is it?
Oh God, Molly Shannon.
You've got time for one question. Now I want to know. You've got time for one question as the lift is going up. What is it?
Oh God. I'm gonna ask her about writing her memoir, and if she enjoyed the process or if it was difficult for her, because it's a really gorgeous memoir, and I can only imagine that it would be kind of difficult for her.
I appreciate that like you were going for a kind of like I need to get an in-depth look of the craft. If I was in that situation, I'd just be like,
Mary Catherine
like
Gallagher.
mouth
Mary
open
Catherine
again.
Gallagher.
I just
Mary
wanted to
Catherine
meet you.
Gallagher.
Hi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Molly Shannon. I think she is one of the best actors.
Shout out to Molly if she listens to the show.
She's
And
one of the best actors. Yeah.
last question: are you happy?
Oh God, no. Are you?
Occasionally, I think it depends on. Funnily enough, I got a direct response like saying, "No, are you happy?" And I'm like, it depends on the day. I think I kind of ebb and flow, and the key thing for me is to be more honest with myself. So if I feel like shit, that's okay. Own it. Like, it's okay to feel like shit. It's okay to struggle to be an adult one day. So I think honesty is the key driver for me.
That sounds really stupid and really dumb, honestly. And you should be really embarrassed that you shared that with me.
I know. Yeah. Not forgive myself.
No, it is so incredibly difficult to be a person right now, and I don't know how to do it sometimes, and sometimes I'm quite all right at it.
That's good. As long as you are okay, that's what matters. Most important.
I would not go that far.
Well, either way, you are okay enough to write an incredible book.
Hey,
and
thanks.
I strongly recommend that everyone go and read it. The House of Rural Realness, which in Australia is published by University of Queensland Press. Curtis, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you so much. And now I'm just a little bit happier than I was before. So thank you.
I did my job. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Date with a Debut, and for listening to the Words and Nerds channel. You can buy all books mentioned in today's episode down in the description box, and if you enjoyed the show, drop us a review, leave us 5 stars or a thumbs up. It really helps the show out. If you want to hear episodes when they drop, be sure to subscribe to Words and Nerds, or you can subscribe to Date with a Debut on Podbean to hear the latest episodes as they drop. Want to support the show more? You can also subscribe to my Patreon in the description to get early access to episodes, book reviews, recommendations, and a whole lot more. Catch you soon! Date with a Debut is a Words and Nerds and Breathe Art podcast co-production.